After an undergraduate degree, a master's, a PhD, and then a postgraduate degree, I realized that I wasted 80% of my time. After 6,000 hours of studying, this is what I've learned. Number one, you can rely too much on familiar techniques, which lead you to a learning stagnation. When you stick to the same learning techniques, when you think, okay, I'm skim reading, or I'm doing active learning, or I'm doing flashcards and I'm good at it, and you just focus on that without thinking about how you could change or how you can make things better, you're too comfortable, and this is when you stagnate. And what this does is you're missing out on new opportunities for learning, and you're missing out on accepting new ways of memorizing, new ways of looking at the text that you have. And I realized that very quickly during my PhD, when I was so used to kind of learning in one way, just kind of reading text, sitting down for like hours on end, reading and then just regurgitating information. In my PhD, I realized that there are so many different ways to learn, and I need to try them out. And it was only when I tried out different methods that I realized that there are so many different techniques to learning and memorization. It's also really good to kind of switch things up when you learn, because it stimulates mental growth and it helps you with like clarity in your vision. The second thing is that taking learning shortcuts creates gaps in your knowledge. And this is a really hard truth, because at university, I expected that if I learned this topic and that topic, I know that the supervisor, I know that the mentor mentioned it, the professor said to do this, but maybe I'll just learn that and not the other parts, because I just need 70%. I just need 60% to pass, right? But when you do that, you're limiting what you learn and you're leaving gaps in your understanding. And doing that quick fix might pass that immediate exam, it might pass that immediate essay, but it's not a sustainable way to learn, and you will eventually pay the price. And then what will happen is, if you don't fix or fill that gap now and understand that gap now, later on when you build on that understanding on that topic in module 2, in year 2 or year 3, you're going to have to fill that gap later. So whilst it may be easier to do it right now and just kind of skim through it at the moment and ignore that gap, you will pay the price. You should really focus on mastery, because mastery takes time, and understanding the material deeply in the beginning saves you from having to go through it again in the future. The third thing is that repetition does not equal mastery. I have to tell myself this again. Repeating something again and again, looking at the same textbook again and again and again and again, does not mean that you know the subject area. It just means that you've memorized it to a good amount, you're able to regurgitate information, but it does not mean that you understand. When you're being passive, you lack engagement in how you learn. And I didn't really quite realize the difference between passive learning and active learning. So a lot of what I did at university and when I was in my education, I look back at it now and I think it was quite passive. It was very much just taking information, just like highlighting things, just kind of like writing things down, not necessarily engaging with the text fully. And when I think back to people who I felt like were smarter, or like who were doing better, a lot of them were quite active in their engagement with the text. And another thing that I realized is that you need to actually apply information to become a master at it. So it's not good enough to just read the information and then walk away and hope that you are able to apply it in an exam. A lot of the time you don't, and that's how I failed my first semester. I don't think anyone knows this, but in my first semester in first year at university, I didn't do very well. I got like 40%, which I was so shocked about, but that was because I was just using the same technique again and again and again, and I wasn't trying to apply the information that I learnt and deepen my understanding. The next thing I learned is that learning isn't meant to be easy. It's meant to be a challenge, because you're meant to understand something that you haven't understood before. When you make things too simple, you end up with quite shallow knowledge. So you know a little bit about this and a little bit about that, but not the depth that you need to be able to answer questions, be critical, and apply the knowledge in kind of exam scenarios or in life situations. So if you feel like a topic is hard, or like learning is challenging or it's difficult, that's because you're actually learning. That's a good thing. I used to see it as, if something's hard or if it's challenging, or if I'm struggling to understand it, that means that I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart, or like, why don't I understand? And that was my mindset. Now that I've come out of education, I realized that the times that I found hard was when I progressed the most. And because I resisted it the most, I probably stopped myself from having a deep understanding and being able to acquire more knowledge and actually be able to achieve more. Then the last thing I learned, and again, it goes back to the whole passive and active learning. And at the time, I did not know these terms, but passive learning is really deceptive. I think lots of us do passive learning. Lots of us think that sitting, listening, watching, highlighting, reading, these are all us learning. And yeah, I spent an hour doing that thing, but it's quite deceptive because time has passed, so you feel like you've done a lot. But actually, you haven't engaged with the text at all. And I didn't quite appreciate the importance of engaging with your information that you're reading. When you actively engage, you improve retention, you improve memory, you improve understanding, and you actually allow yourself space to be able to then apply that information in different aspects, and also then go ahead and use it in things like an interview, or use it in places where you may have, you don't think that these things are required. I realise now that all the times that I have been passive, I've had like a false sense of achievement, and I think that's quite dangerous because you can spend the time but then not achieve anything from it. So always be mindful of the fact that yes, you're doing something, but are you actively involved in it, or are you just a body doing the thing? That makes sense. Those are the 5 things that I learned through the many hours of studying and education, and I hope that kind of helps you bring clarity and think about what you're doing so you don't make the same mistakes, so you don't get to the point where you've done so many things but not necessarily achieved as much. And if you enjoyed this, then don't forget to leave me a comment down below, and please share, is there something that you feel like you've struggled with in the past when it comes to learning, that you've had to learn the hard way? Please share, and I'd love to hear yours as well, and I'll see you in the next video.